podcast. I am your co-host, David Nelson, and this is Days of Learning podcast and Back to the Kitchen. And I'm joined by my colleague and friend and person wearing blue like me, Ms. Yvonne Greer. Ms. Yvonne Greer, it's such a joy to see you today.
Well, and it's nice to be here today for our second session of 2022. Back to the kitchen.
This is so exciting that we're being able to do this. One of these days, we're going to have to do this together. So since we're thinking about the pandemic, but I'm going to say something here that we didn't script, and I'm so excited for today's show. And one of the reason is, you might not remember it, but you invited me to an event 15 years ago, I think 16 years ago. You said, hey, come on to the state fair where we're going to be doing this programming called Youth Take Charge. And that was my first time I ever saw you working with the public and having the youth. And that was so, I still remember that session. And I always thought of youth when I think of you.
That was our State Fair Youth and Family Fitness Showcase.
Yes.
And we had almost like a 2.5-hour review with youth programming, dancing, also the Youth Take Charge group doing their healthy snack recipes. They were youth peer educators, and we had all sorts of things at the state fair for 2.5 hours, wherein, people there with their family and their children can not only enjoy the fair, but also be motivated through health and wellness programming. So sometimes you just keep working, and you almost forget about those things.
I remember because I was new to town and you took the time to invite me, and I thought this sounds like fun, and it was fun. And it was so cool to see you working with the youth. And that's what the title of our session today is: promoting healthy eating in youth. Yvonne, what's our theme? What is going to be our theme today?
Well, our theme today is going to be looking at, our thought processes around food. So the question of the day is, are you eating for pleasure or are you eating for health? And many times when we pose that to youth, they think about it and they think about, well, some say, I eat what I like. And then someone might get the thing and say that's a trick question. And my thing is always that you should be able to eat for both. Healthy eating should be able to be a pleasure, and you should be able to have recipes that you thoroughly enjoy, but also are giving you loads of nutrition at the same time. So that's why I will have my tagline, nutritious and delicious. But for youth, that makes a big difference because, youth are learning all the time. They're learning and they learn from the experiences. And if their experience is negative, that might set the stage for things that happen all through their lives. So I want healthy eating to be a positive experience for youth.
I'm so glad you said that because, we're still in the pandemic, unfortunately, and there are world events that make us stressed. And having this idea of food that can be healthy and pleasurable is important to remind the audience that we're not just here about the science of nutrition, but we're about the joy of eating.
Yes. And that joy of eating, you find that for different groups of people, it can be a struggle to eat.
Mm-hmm.
And with our youth, sometimes we don't realize that our youth don't know the struggle. They just know what they get to eat. And so then they gauge what they get to eat on if that is something filling, if that is something that they can enjoy through their taste buds. Sometimes if they don't have teachable moments, sometimes if they're not giving that information, they don't know that different foods are healthier than others.
Mm-hmm.
And that they can actually make choices and selections to eat healthier. If they learn that at an early age, my business name is Why Eat Right, Nutritional Consultant for Healthy Living. And I recently seen some fantastic research that said that the earlier you adopt healthy eating, the longer and more years you add to your life.
That's right. And when you talk about the idea of youth, the biggest influence on youth is going to be parents, of course. And we're going to talk with some of our guests today about some of their teaching. And we know that one of your earliest teachers was your mother. And so this idea of being a role model and being a teacher isn't just for people who are dietitians and nutritionists,
Yes.
but it goes to the parents. And we talked about this before the show about how eating doesn't have to be it doesn't have to be a battle. It doesn't have to be a challenge for families, and it can be pleasurable and it can be fun. You know, I want to get to I can't wait to show the video today. So
Yes.
if people in our audience, if you have, are you eating for pleasure, or eating for health? I hope you'll give comments in the chat. But let's take a look at the video, then we'll talk some more afterwards. How does that sound?
That sounds great.
All right, let's roll the video, please.
Good afternoon and welcome back to the kitchen. I'm Yvonne Greer, registered dietitian and owner of Why Eat Right, nutritional consultant for healthy living. And today I have with me Nikita Davis, dietetic technician student from MATC, Milwaukee Area Technical College. This program is brought to you by MCOP, the Milwaukee County Organizations Promoting Prevention and the Medical College of Wisconsin, in partnership with the State of Wisconsin's Chronic Disease Prevention Program, with funding through the CDC 1815 grant. Today we're going to be demonstrating 2 youth-friendly, easy recipes from the Back to the Kitchen curriculum. The recipe that I will be demonstrating today is the south of the border nacho bean dip, which calls for chili beans, green chiles, chopped tomatoes, shredded cheese, 2 tortilla chips, and then a little bit of extra spice with your red pepper flakes. And Nakia, for your recipe.
Okay. So my recipe is going to be the apple squares. The ingredients calls for graham crackers, whipped cream cheese, coconut flakes, gala apples, and a lemon.
So Nikita, could you start us off with our first recipe of the day, our delicious apple squares?
For our apple squares recipe, the first thing you want to do is wash off your apples. Anytime you have fruits or vegetables, you want to make sure you rinse your apples off. So I have a couple apples over here soaking in baking soda, 2 teaspoons of baking soda for about 15 minutes. You want to do that if you want to eat the apple with the peel on, and it helps to rinse off the pesticide. Now we're going to prepare the apples. You want to make sure you have an apple coring tool, and you want to make sure you have it centered in the middle of the apple. Okay, and then we're just going to press down. And then there you have your apple wedges. This tool can also be used for children 8 years and up. They may need a little supervision with trying to press the core down to get it over the apple. Then I have another apple here. My other apple, just make sure that the apple core is in the middle of the apple. Press down on it. Alright. There you go. Alright, now that I have all my apple wedges over here in a bowl, I'm going to cut up a lemon, and I'm going to sprinkle some lemon juice on top of the apple. The lemon, by doing this, the lemon helps, the acid in the lemon helps keeps the apples from browning. So you want to make sure that you sprinkle all the lemon juice over the apple as much as you can. Next, we're going to flake our coconut. I'm using a bag of sweetened coconut flakes. You can get a bag of unsweet coconut flakes and use that as well. So now you lay out 8 graham crackers, and then I'm going to add the cream cheese spread on there. And you want to make sure you get a good spread all over the graham cracker. And then you just keep it going until you spread the cream cheese over all 8 of your crackers. And this is a good activity that kids can do. And you can also use light cream cheese for this. And now I'm going to take an apple wedge and put 1 apple wedge on top of each square. So now you have the apple centered in the middle of the graham cracker on top of the cream cheese spread. Now I'm going to take my coconut flakes and I'm going to spread it on top of the apple. Once you put the cream cheese on top of the graham cracker, if you want, you can put the coconut flakes on top of the cream cheese. But I'm just going to put it right on top of the apple and kind of sprinkle it around the graham cracker as well, like so. So here you have it, our apple squares. Now for our next recipe.
The recipe that I'll be demonstrating is the south of the border nacho bean dip. The bean dip calls for 1 can of chili beans. I'm just putting the whole can in. One pan of green chilies. This gives it a little spice. And then 1 cup, which is half of this bag, of shredded cheddar cheese. And this is the low-fat shredded cheddar cheese. And all you have to do is stir it. This is a quick and easy recipe that kids can make, or you could make it in advance and have it where they just come home and microwave a little bit of it up. So I'm going to just add this to the microwave with a paper towel over the top so it doesn't splatter. And then we'll set it on 6 minutes. I'll be checking on that every 2 minutes. Next, I will be chopping up one tomato, as I always usually do, is cut it in half, turn each side down, and then I'm going to be cutting strips in the middle of it. This will be diced tomatoes. And then I just turn it and cut the other direction. With young children, you will want to have your diced tomatoes already made up for them, but they enjoy putting their tomatoes over the top of their bean dip. Now it's time to check on our bean dip. Oh, there it is. It's really shaping up really good. Even though we have on there 6 minutes ample time, if it's done before then we take it out. So our bean dip should be about ready. Let's see. Oh yes. Here we have it, the nacho bean dip. Now beans are very high in iron, but it is not the type that's very readily absorbed. So to help with the absorption of iron, we have our diced tomatoes, which is high in vitamin C, plus has loads of lycopene, which is also healthy for you. Now we want to add our chips. And I have 2 different types of chips. The multi-grain chips, that is made with whole grains. These particular chips I did get from Aldi's. And they do also have flax seeds in them, which is very healthy. And then also our blue corn chips. And these are made with sea salt. They're gluten-free, very healthy. Now all you would do is that you would add some of the beans. Because you know I'm smiling. And then some of the tomato right over the top. Now for children, again, you could have them have their own plate, and then they could just put how much beans and their tomatoes on there, and they feel like they will have made a great snack. I made this with mild beans. It's not very hot, and the green chilies don't make them very hot. But I like a little bit of extra spice on mine, so I add in hot pepper flakes, just to give it that extra little touch. So there you have it. Our soft with a border nacho bean dip made with whole grain chips and topped with diced tomatoes. So there you have it. 2 quick and easy healthy snacks, sure to please any hungry youth after school or whenever the urge hits. So Nikita, you want to take a taste?
Yes, I do. Delicious.
And nutritional. Let's get back to our show and our discussions with our invited guests.
That was awesome. Nikita did such a good job today.
Yes, yes, yes. She was fantastic, and it was a fun experience. And you saw how we enjoyed that taste at the end.
Man,
Yes.
I'll tell you what, I was, my mouth was salivating.
Right. Yes, indeed.
I want to have you comment a little bit, because sometimes we think that food that is fast is food that isn't healthy. And, you know, I noticed, I had to look this up, but coconut is one of those, it's kind of like a superfood because you can get magnesium and copper and selenium and manganese and iron and potassium. And then, you know, when you talked about the bean dip, the vitamin C, the lycopene, the iron, the whole grains, and you made that recipe right there in front of us in about 3 minutes. I know it took a little longer than that, but it was a really quick recipe. Talk about fast and healthy, Yvonne.
Yes, and that's the myth that people sometimes think, you know, cooking has to take a long time, that, you know, in order to eat quick and easy meals, many times you got to be at a fast food place or have something like that's fried and that type of thing. And you see that those recipes were simple, quick, easy, ones that you can just, you know, have the ingredients on hand. It was only 3 ingredients for the nacho bean dip. And so, you know, we're in a world now that many people want the convenience.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes they don't realize you can have the quick and easy at home if you just plan a little bit ahead so that you have the ingredients. And then you can have your quick and easy grab and go kind of snacks. And that one, because it's a complete meal, because you have all of your food groups. And when I say that one, I was thinking about the nacho bean dip.
Right.
That has so much. The only thing I would add is either a little bit of you know, water to drink, if you like it hot like me, or some orange juice, which has some more vitamin C that will help all that the nutrients in those beans get absorbed, and the calcium. You've got all sorts of things going in one tasty dish that we don't even think about. So
that's so interesting. And we talk about youth, and I love that term youth friendly, because so many families are on the go, and they just have to do it quick. And to have a meal like that you can have, that you can prepare partially ahead of time, but then to have the family participate in that is really important. I want to ask you, Yvonne, because it's something that I heard recently. And when we're talking about children and youth and adolescents, you know, sometimes we think that just because we know it, that everybody does. But children are not little adults.
No, and they learn differently.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can tell them things, and their brains are still developing when they won't retain it. But you can now show them and have them feel and touch and participate, and then they learn by all of those things, and they remember that activity of doing it and having it done. And then that you know, now they're now even seeing the textures and the smells of the food, and all that is getting ingrained in them, that this is what healthy eating is. These combinations of healthy food is what is healthy eating. And if they don't get that, then they're going to do what they learned and experienced when they get older, and which, if it's fast food, is fast food. So the home, the kitchen, can be their number one teacher of what makes up a healthy meal, and having it prepared with their family and in their own setting. It really instills in them the importance of healthy eating if it's done right from the very start.
You know, and you've said this before, and I want to hear you with your years of experience. Kids like to be with their parents in the kitchen, right?
Yeah, yeah. One thing that people don't realize is that children like to be close to their parents and doing things with their parents. And I'm a fond believer of Ellen Satter's work, who did work on the relationship, developing a healthy relationship with food, the parent's responsibility and the child's responsibility. And it really started saying is that, you know, parents can set the stage, the environment, the types of foods, and it's up to the children to eat. But when their parents are near them, they eat better. The whole experience is different because they want that belonging and that relationship to their parents to be there. And so that it's a socialization kind of thing. So feeding your children, giving them a plate, putting it on the table and going into the other room, that doesn't always work when it instills a positive relations about food. But when that parent can pull that chair up and sit down with them and they make it together and enjoy it together and talk and socialize, it means even more, and children eat better. So when you say, how can you get your children to eat fruits and vegetables? A lot of times serve it and eat with them.
You know, and it's important because you talked about these quick meals, that can happen with, you can have children help at a very young age. There's really no, if they can walk and they can talk, they can help in the kitchen, right?
Right. And in the Back to the Kitchen, I just wanted to mention that we have Back to the Kitchen with fruit curriculum, with vegetables. At each one of those stages, I have adjustments for the very small children, the tweens, the in-between ages, the teenagers, and the adult, with the same concept, but just tailoring it to the conceptual level of that child. So if you're talking about having a healthy trail mix, you can talk about what is a trail mix and what types of foods can give you energy, and having children know what energy is. There's things that you can do. And I have it already adjusted for people who want to start at that very young age. But what they're finding out is what you establish at the young ages set the stage for your health throughout life. So at those very young ages, if they're seeing fruits and vegetables and healthy foods in the home at that young age, maybe as they get older, they'll have less heart disease, less risk factors for diabetes, less problems with, but now we call it fatty liver. And I mean, my students have been going through fatty liver disease. And I'm, what is that? Well, and it's they call it non-alcoholic.
Yes.
And it's saying that because of the high fat, high sugar, and high, fast food eating, some people's liver are really becoming engorged with fat, and it's limiting their energy and their health. But the liver is an amazing thing. If you change your diet and things, that liver can recover and become healthy again. So we can improve our health and our longevity at any age.
And I want to have you comment on one more thing, because you know what, you and I both like to have fun. So keeping the teaching fun. Why is that important?
Well, because different people learn at different stages and with different pieces of their brain, and things that you will remember, and things that are fun tend to stay with you for life. And music, entertainment, and then having health entwined in that, many times people can remember that and it gets ingrained even more. Some people learn better through just words and books, but there's a lot, especially in youth, that when music is added to it, when fun is added to it, that it actually gets ingrained even quicker and easier, and it's retained even more. And they've had a lot of studies on that. I was able to actually be in the audience a couple of times when the Jump and Jill program was, and they actually put music and hip hop music to teaching nutrition and health and wellness. And it's a sight to see, but the children really respond to it. And it really sends a message that, health and wellness is a fun thing and something that we want to do versus something we dread. And sometimes that was the message in the past.
Absolutely. And your recipes today were a whole lot of fun. And boy, I'm just so sorry that I didn't get to eat any of that dip and that apple. I mean, we're going to have to make some of that when I get home tonight. Hey, Yvonne, let's bring our guests on. Should we do that?
Yes, that's definitely. I'm ready and just excited about the people that we have today.
All right. I am so thrilled. We are so thrilled to welcome Sally Yeldell and Bridgett Wilder to the show today. And I'm going to introduce Sally first. Sally Yeldell loves working and hearing the voices of the people that need answers, whether it's related to health, healthy eating, foster care, or independent living. Sally was the vice president of West Lawn Housing for 15 years and Silver Spring Neighborhood Center for 10 years, working in the garden and the foster care committee. Sally also is part of the West Lawn Partnership for a Healthier Environment and a community ambassador, and worked for the school system for approximately 16 years. She was involved with Growing Your Future program with MCOP, along with the United Neighborhood Centers of Milwaukee, annual walks for health and wellness. Sally is now the Baby Best Zone coordinator and is still continually working in the community. Today, Sally will speak to helping people become more aware of gardening and trying a variety of different foods, and why it is important to know where vegetables and fruits start before they come to the table. Welcome, Miss Sally Yeldell.
Hello.
It's good to see you again.
Hi.
Nice to see everyone again as well.
I
Mhm.
I was going to introduce Bridgett, and then we'll get into our talk. So Bridgett Wilder, a widowed mother of 9, is CEO of Perseverance Health and Wellness Nutrition Consultation Services, LLC, dietitian, author, and motivational speaker. As a health and wellness consultant, she uses her knowledge to help her clients improve their overall nutritional health outcomes by teaching the concepts of nutrition and psychology. Bridgett Wilder is a graduate of Mount Mary University, where she earned her bachelor's degree in science with an emphasis on dietetics and psychology. Bridgett facilitates corporate and community wellness programs, such as the Medical College of Wisconsin's Men Moving Forward, American Cancer Society, Milwaukee Area Health Education Center, City of Milwaukee, Silver Spring Neighborhood Center, and more. Very active person. She teaches how to improve health outcomes by way of nutrition for communities with high-risk health disparities. As a weight loss specialist, she has helped many clients lose over 100 pounds under her program. She believes if you can eat your way into poor health, you can eat your way into improved health. She believes food is medicine. She also recently created her own juice line and juice and smoothie line called Smooth Transitions, soon to be announced at her grand opening. Bridgett has been interviewed on major news shows, both locally and internationally, such as the Channel 4 Positively Milwaukee with anchor Carol Meekins, and CDC White Coat Black Art with Dr. Brian Goldman in Canada, spreading the importance of how nutrition choices impact health and the importance of eating healthy foods. Bridgett is currently a member of the Food to School Council. As a member, she has a voice. She has a voice to help affect policy to ensure nutritional wellness in schools throughout the state of Wisconsin. She was awarded and elected to her seat by the governor of Wisconsin and the Department of Agriculture for the state of Wisconsin. A major important component of her business is providing mentorship for women with the goal to uplift, encourage, inspire them to be well in every area of their life. Her motto is be well in mind, body, and spirit. And I have to put a special note that I have been one of Bridgett's followers and supporters for several years now, and did a little work with her in her undergrad. So I am so happy to welcome Bridgett to our show today.
Thank you. Thank you. You haven't fully estimated your value in my life, so I will speak more on that when it's my turn to speak.
What a joy it is to have all three of you here today. And we've been talking about youth and healthy eating and joy and pleasure. And I want to start with this general question for both of you, and actually for you too, Yvonne, because I know you have more to say about this. Why is it so important for youth to start on the right foot when it comes to eating. Sally, I'm going to have you start first because of your work with the birthing process and babies. Can you start us off on why it's so important for youth to get a good start on healthy eating?
Well, for one, it starts when the parent is pregnant with the child. A lot of healthy eating for the development for the mother and to the child, that's where it really starts at. If the mother eat junk food, probably I'm just estimating on my own, but probably 9 times out of 10, they won't really want vegetables or healthy eating because of what they first feeding on. And so I think that is very important to start there in the development and kind of introduce the different kind of fruits and different kind of vegetables. I like the fact that the baby food have different varieties, but sometimes we always want to stick with the same, and it's beneficial, but it's not beneficial because other fruits and vegetables have different vitamins and minerals that they need in their body, so it will help the mother and the child.
Go ahead, Bridgett. I want to have you join in, but I got to tell you that, when you talk about weight loss specialist, I think what Sally's saying may play into what you've coached and taught other people. Can you take it from Sally and bring us into how this all fits together?
First of all, let me say, I work with a lot of high-risk populations. And one of the things I found on my journey of teaching corporate and community wellness programs is we often talk about the passed down behaviors or the passed down diseases, but we don't talk about the passed down eating behaviors, which impacts the family long term. So what ends up happening is a community is sick and dying because we haven't addressed the food habits of the family. So if we address the parents, we address the children. And oftentimes what weakens our community is that when people are stuck in a mode of not knowing how food impacts their health, but we just focus on how it tastes, that's where the breakdown begins. So one thing about facilitating classes where I teach youth, a lot of that foundation was built on what I had to establish in my own household. And let me use an example of losing my husband when I was 35 years old. He died from heart disease. His mom died from heart disease. His dad died from heart disease. My children were at risk for heart disease based on the symptoms that they had as young children. So for me as a dietitian, it was twofold because my older children grew up with my old negative eating behaviors. But by the time I became a dietitian and I learned more about how food impacts health, my younger children transitioned to my new habits. So what ended up happening is I have a case study in my own household. What happened? What they watched me do was where they ended up at. So it's critical that we address that parent so that if we get the parent to shift, it influences not only the immediate family, but everything in that surrounding community, just by understanding that it doesn't just begin with eating changes, but mental changes in our approach to food and how it impacts us.
And before you even go on, I wanted to say that what both of you have been talking about is this whole idea of the life course perspective in health and wellness and eating. When a woman is pregnant, she's the product of her mother and her grandmother. And they're saying if you want to see what her outcomes might be, just start looking back into the family on how that outcome is. And sooner or later, someone has to change the cycle. And as you introduce more health and nutrition in. So even if you started with the mom, she can improve her health, her nutrition. Sometimes she's motivated to do that at that stage, but that needs to continue to the children and their children. And if you start thinking about it, even when you, before a person ever has any children, their DNA and their eggs and different things are set in their body from well before they were ever even born. So the health of the family starts making so much more difference just than saying we're just going to talk to this one person. And then when you start looking at the habits in the family, once you start changing the habits in the family, so it's not just for that person. So somebody gets a chronic disease and they say, oh, I got to change my eating. And then you fix other food for them and one food. No, healthy eating is for everyone and everyone can benefit. The younger you improve that health and wellness, the longer life expectancy. But they're saying even if a person starts at age 80 and start eating healthy, they can actually improve their life expectancy even at age 80. And so when you start young, you may be preventing so many more health complications. And as Bridgett was saying, it may start a generation of health and wellness that's going to last from that generation to the next generation to the next generation. So starting at young, building those healthy habits up early may make a difference for the whole culture. We don't sometimes look at it being that huge, but it is. It is.
Well, you answered my question, Yvonne, because you were, the way Bridgett framed it, she said whole communities are sick and dying, and that this has an impact on the communities. And we know that communities of color have greater levels of heart disease, greater levels of cancer than white communities. And so it is this idea of reversing it, the idea of passing down those things that, as our recipe showed us today, doesn't have to be very hard. And so it can be both enjoyable and is something that can arrest and reverse the trends that we're seeing out in the community.
And that's where the role modeling comes into play. And I think, Bridgett, you touched on the role modeling. The role modeling, when you made that decision to make changes in your own life, and that's what your children saw. And they were able to then incorporate that into their own lifestyle and well-being. If you can speak to that a little bit.
Okay, so one thing about me as a dietitian, I never wanted to be talking about things that I was not living. And one thing I do say for sure is, as I do all these classes for youth, I told myself, I am not going to save the world by way of nutrition and leave my children lost. So it holds me accountable, or holds me accountable in my home and in a community by way of what I do. So one of the things that changed outside of getting through my degree and implementing psychology and nutrition, one thing for sure, I lost 170 pounds and I was formally diagnosed as a diabetic. So I was a case study on how food impacts health, and two of my oldest children lost nearly over 100 pounds after they moved away. And now they're consistent with their workouts. So it didn't stop because they moved out.
Right.
They were strengthened by watching mom grow outside of having to raise them alone, 9 of them, after their dad passed. So I was their example in more than one way. Yeah. So for me, I have to be honest. And the reason why I have the psychological component is because the picture is bigger than just food. Some people deal with living in impoverished neighborhoods, as we did. We were homeless at one time after my husband died. And I had to learn how to prepare things healthy off of what I could afford. For me, that meant rinsing off the excess salt from the food pantry foods. I had to make it work, but I also had to consider I didn't want them to be left without another parent.
Yes.
So now they are value adders to the world because of the example that I learned. And I have to be honest, you as my mentor played a critical role in that. Because being able to see another dietitian that is well-versed in that, and I didn't know you at the time, but I heard your name. And I was intrigued. I was intrigued by you on so many levels. And can you all still hear me? I'm sorry,
we can hear you.
I turned off my phone.
Yeah, we can hear you.
So one thing I want to say in that space is that having an example is critical, because talking to you and you telling me how I can make a difference, it caused me to make a difference. So I just want to throw that in.
Well, thank you. Thank you for throwing it in. She always makes me feel so happy about that I could have influenced you, but that also stems from me being influenced, like you said, in the home, and having someone that really supported nutrition, healthy and wellness. But you did speak on something, and I know that Sally knows this too, is that we are faced with so many stressors and other things in our life that, and I always have said, food is pleasure, is love. It can be comfort. You can be eating because of stress. You can be eating for so many other things other than just nutrition. And so sometimes your relationship with food, it comes into play. And that relationship is built on so many other things that sometimes you don't even realize that's why you have the weight, or that's why things are going this or that way, or that you're not eating as healthy, but you're almost using food to help you survive. So once you learn that, and that's why when you came to me, Bridgett, and said you're going to put psychology with it, I thought, wow, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. But I know that Sally, dealing with teaching people how to eat healthy and teaching youth, because me and her did so many programs with that growing
your future.
yeah, and some of the youth.
Yep.
So if you can speak to that piece of it too, teaching, engaging.
It was a joy actually seeing teenagers being happy to make healthy food and healthy choices, because nowadays you walk around town, it's them hot flamings. They have it's almost like they have rainbow colors and going inside their body, but they're not realizing that later on you're going to have to deal with behaviors in school, behaviors on the job, behaviors in the community, behaviors at home, because of what you're storing up in your body. But then at the same time, you sneaking to do that, but you got some teens that are eating healthy at home, and they feel, well, since I'm eating healthy at home, when I'm out and about with my friends and at school, I'm gonna eat junk. But you're going to deal with consequences of that as well. But seeing the kid, actually it started with the kids in the garden, and seeing their faces change, how the food go to the table. What are you supposed to do with the food when it's in the ground, under the ground, or on a tree? And then when it grow and then it goes to the table, that changed their perspective, because they're learning different tools to work with different fruits and vegetables. And they also getting those names so they can label it when they with their mom, to have that conversation when they're in the store or when they're sitting at dinner time and they having that conversation. Where did this come from? And then you can tell the story about the history of each fruit and each vegetables, and keep introducing new stuff. I remember, I always use this as a prime example, the lemon cucumber. I was so excited picking the seed for that and growing it. I had everybody in Silver Spring tasting it, and they like, what is that? How do it taste? I said, you know what? You have to taste it and then you tell me. And start telling me, oh, it's tastes just like a cucumber. Yes, it is, but it looks different. So they need to know the different, that like carrots wasn't always orange. It was purple and it's white. There's different colors of it. And, and it was fun to see the rainbow colors of fruits and vegetables, and they enjoyed themselves and they was excited to even come. And you got stubborn teenagers that, oh, I don't want to be involved. Oh my God. It was so many of them coming, and they didn't miss a beat. They loved it. And I enjoyed just seeing their faces like, wow, I'm a part of changing their future.
I remember one program that we did, and at the end of it, because everyone was able to taste and sample and try and rate everything. And this one guy said, I want to take these home and let my family know that I made this. He
Yes.
was just so impressed that he actually made something. And
Yeah.
that was like a rude awakening for him, because he, I always have a checkout at the end. And I said, well, what was the checkout? He said, my checkout was that this is actually good. He said, I didn't think it would be good. This is actually good. And those students who was reluctant in working with me, they all didn't even want me to leave. They
Yeah.
took my bags and everything and walked me to my car and made sure I got, and I thought this was wonderful, but these were students that had never been in the kitchen, and it made actually the backdrop for Back to the Kitchen.
You know,
Exactly.
I want to first the purple carrots. I still can't do purple carrots. I just can't. They taste like carrots, but carrots orange. Yvonne, I want you to tell the story, because I think that, you know, we've told it a lot, but I want you to tell it here about the idea of Back to the Kitchen and how it all came to be.
Well, I was doing different programs in the community at Silver Springs, at the Golden Center, and different places with youth. And I had this one training, and I think even Sally, you were at that training, where I had different stations of different youth doing different recipes. So I had about 4 different recipes going on at the same time. And I gave this one girl, it was actually a red pepper, and it called for it to be, diced up, and then carrots to be sliced, tomato, I was making a fruit pizza dessert, all sorts of things, and some of the that we demonstrated here. And the one girl was sitting there, she couldn't move, and she kept looking at and I said, well, you need to get going. I kept telling them, read your recipe. What do what I need to do? Read your recipe. They couldn't, one girl, and I said, well, you just have to get, she said, I don't know what to do with this. Like, she had never saw a red pepper. And I said, cut it in half. She cut it in half. And I'm thinking, then, she says, now what? I said, you got to clean out all the seeds. And then, and after she did that and cleaned it out, now what? Eventually I found out none of them knew how to read the recipe. They didn't know what slicing and dicing and chopping and this and that and was. One student, so I got her to start cutting it up. One student, I need you over here. I need you. This one guy was trying to help his friend out to cut up strawberries. I said, why are you helping him cut up the strawberries? Because he can't do it. I want to show him. The boy was trying to hold a knife with his fist. He didn't know how to hold a knife. So I had to show him how to hold a knife. I said, oh no, two people don't need to be cutting up strawberries. Before long, found out that they were supposed to blenderize the cottage cheese. They started blenderizing, and the guy twisted the thing off of the base and picked it up, and the stuff was oozing out. Emergency, emergency. So I go over there, and we put something under real quick, try to, and it just so happened I had some of the sauce for the finished dip, for the fruit pizza already made up from a program before. At that time, I realized we need to get our children back in the kitchen. These should not be teenagers and the first time they see a red pepper ever in their life. They shouldn't be teenagers who can't even cut up a strawberry because they've never handled a strawberry before, or a knife. And I was really surprised about that. So we started the Back to the Kitchen, and we just kept adding, okay, we got to put knife skills in there. Okay, we got to put what slicing and dicing. And then we did a video. So not only did we, have it in written form, we put a video together to show what is slicing, what is dicing, what is mincing, what is boiling and broiling and steaming, so that people really, because we couldn't assume that the parents and the adults knew either. So that's where Back to the Kitchen came from. And that's what, we're saying is that we lost something somewhere over time. Those skills were not passed down, but those skills can be rediscovered if we get back into the kitchen.
I love that. And Kelsey put the Back to the Kitchen link in the chat because we make this open source. Anybody can have it available, download it and use it. Bridgett, I want to ask you this question based upon that story, because I love your connection of psychology, eating, weight loss, health, and all of that. But what is it like when you see someone, the light comes on and they get it, and they get the feeling and the skills, and it tastes good? What happens then?
Okay, twofold. I'll start with, let's say I see a group and I say, hey, if I tell you to declutter your cabinet for nutritional success, what do you think I mean? I'm asking you, Dave. What do you think I mean if I say that?
I would think you'd want me to have the things that are going to provide the best health for me. So to perhaps remove some things that may have high salt in them or high fat in them.
Okay, and that is a correct component.
Okay.
But the other part is, what is around me that's sabotaging me? Do I have support?
Yes.
Who is encouraging me, or who is causing a demise?
Yes.
Am I an emotional eater?
Yes.
If I don't get to the root, I can't pull anything up. So psychology is my canvas.
Yes.
And if I don't deal with the root cause, I would have people who was going to the store and filling their cabinets up with everything healthy, but leaving and going to Culver's to get a meal.
Yes.
So what happens is we end up with spoiled food because we have not transitioned mentally. And if we don't transition mentally, we'll keep having organizations create grants, but we'll never be able to tell what shifted after we did the event. So for me, a class is not just a class to say, hey, I'm on this grant as a dietitian and I'm doing this. What did I do to make an impact?
Yeah.
Will you invest in a grant in me again because of the success that has leveraged? So the value of me as a professional and my capacity to understand nutritional concepts, a bigger part of my strength is being able to be relatable.
Yes.
So when I teach teenagers and youth, I meet them where they are without judgment. So if they come to me saying what they eat, and some may like to cook, some of the kids tell me they like to cook. So I say, what do you cook? Oh, I like to make ramen noodles.
Right.
I like to bake cookies. Okay. So how can I have you introduced to something healthy while even starting with what you eat already? Introducing you to some vegetables that you may be able to put into that ramen noodles, but teaching you why you shouldn't, like, instead of using the packet of sodium that's in the ramen noodles, how about we flavor it with Mrs. Dash? So I'm keeping you familiar by slowly pulling you away. And then I tell you why. Why did I take that sodium packet out of that ramen noodle? Because of the sodium could lead to heart disease.
Yes.
If I can get my students whose family drink one soda a day to stop doing that, that one soda a day is 29 pounds of sugar in a year. That alone creates a place for diabetes to cultivate just by shifting them from soda. So if I am not well-versed and in tune to listening to what the community is doing, and one thing about helping people transition to healthy food, if you don't meet them where they at, let's say, for example, I introduced them to kale and I put all of this stuff together with it, but they've never had it. I lose them first class.
Right.
But if I make a pizza, which everybody loves, and I have them chop up vegetables, and instead of using pepperoni and sausage, we're using spinach and all these different vegetables. What did I just do? Now we're meeting the requirement of 6 to 11 servings of fruits and vegetables a day. Even though they're still eating pizza, we still made a healthful impact while teaching them strategies to slowly reduce consumption of some of the things that they consume.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then, that aha moment when I do individual consultation, when I get moms and I say, what do you think I mean by decluttering their cabinets? Then they say, whoa, I'm an emotional eater.
Mm.
I cannot eat, I cannot watch a movie without having snacks. There is emotional eating attached to planning for a funeral and planning for a wedding.
Yeah, definitely. Mhm.
So we have to be able to address those small, intricate details. So that, if that answers your question.
It was a really beautiful way to say that. And Yvonne, that idea of not judging and not.
That relationship
Yes.
building and meeting people where they're at, that is such a great concept, because so many people feel that they're going to be judged, and that even though they, in their mind, they want to do better, they can't overcome the obstacles of getting to health and wellness because they're still trying to navigate whatever thing and stressors that they're having. And so, you know, to break away from what what has become their comfort, what has become their survival, is very hard, even if they know that's not healthy. Sometimes it's hard to break away from, but once you meet them where they're at, and then you show them that you can do it, and show them that doing it can even taste good. Doing it does not have to mean you're doing something that is so drastic that you can't live with it. And once they see they can live with it, sometimes that motivates them to start figuring out ways to redo, I say, making those healthy makeovers. Sometimes they just get motivated to figure it out and then come show you, oh yeah, I made a healthy makeover and I did this and I did that. But it's almost as if they have to first go through something. And that's why the psychology, and that's why knowing and developing that relationship is so key. The relationship that you don't have to hide from yourself or from the way you eat. And you're not going to be vilified from me, because I tell people there's got to be something healthy in your diet if you're still here. You're still here, we have room to change if we are still here. And sometimes, you know, young people, if they're eating for, well, they're eating for pleasure, eating for health, if they're more eating for pleasure, for stress, they did a study from American Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics that actually showed that youth eat more from boredom and stress than parents think. From just boredom. And then what they pick from boredom sometimes is the easiest thing they can get their hands on and the easiest thing that, you know, they have. And so that sometimes that might be chips. They might, you know, easiest thing they can buy with their money. But if you make healthy food, the easy choice, that's easy in the refrigerator, and they can eat something healthy and tasty and good, like the apple squares and that type of thing, that they can just, they know that it's a health, they don't care about it being a healthy choice. They want it to taste good. They want it to taste good, but if they feel that, oh, this healthy food tastes good and they're having it, that's what they're going to reach for. I don't know. It's Sally, you still there? You kind of took a break?
No,
You're moving.
but I want to think driving. I was thinking about making that like a family activity with the family and having the kids to make the snacks. So that way they're gonna eat it, and then they're gonna see if their mom is gonna eat, because sometimes it can go backwards then forward, where the mom is feeding them healthy or unhealthy. But if we got people in the community, which we do, teaching the value of eating healthy and showing the friendly recipes to the kids, then that way they'll go to the store and they say, well, Mom, I want to try this, this, and this, and this. And the kids are bringing a new recipe to the family and to the table. And that could be somewhere where it's starting the kids and the families eating healthy because of what they bring into the table. And then also, I think families need to know how to shop, whether they got a small income or high income. So that way they'll know what foods to get, the time of the resource of how long the food is going to last, like the lifespan of the food. Right. I think that's also a thing what needs to be played in as far as when the children are eating also. Because like I said, the hot flaming, they have an expiration date on there and they need to learn how to read.
Right.
So that way they know what to look for. Because I think, like in school when it was being babies and Head Start and everything, they only saw certain fruits, certain vegetables, certain colors, certain shapes. But then now it's like, okay, so that's to ingredients, is going to vitamins and minerals. How do you teach them that also on their level? That's a part of meeting them where they're at, So I like the thing back to the basics, because we don't see enough of that. And we don't see, like, we always want to cook the same thing with the same ingredients instead of changing it and trying to either make it happy or either change the color of what we're eating and what the kids are eating. They learned about rainbows when they was younger. Well, there's fruits and vegetables that's in the rainbow category. How do we make our table rainbow?
Those are definitely excellent points, because it does start in the home. And sometimes the school system can teach things, but that was one of the things that we asked one of our youth programs. They said, what would be needed for you to eat healthier? They said, just bring the food in the house. Just buy the food. Just give us healthier food and we'll eat healthier food. And, it said, that sounds awfully simple, but they said that the biggest thing when we started our school health programs was getting the parents on board. Because even though the food was changed, some parents was meeting kids at the fence, giving them fish dinners. Because they said, they don't eat, they just sell all that healthy stuff. So making sure that what is taught in the school is also transformed into what the family is actually serving in the household. So, because it really, what you serve in that home is very key. And the Youth Take Charge program that I had that teaches the youth to be fruit and vegetable peer educators, it really was working, that the youth was teaching the parents, because the parents were said, oh, my kids are not going to eat that. And when they actually tasted and sampled and they tried it after their youth had made it, they said, oh, I never would have thought they would have had a vegetable wrap up with raw onions in it and really liked it. Or they'll tell me, oh, my child is not going to eat those tomatoes put on top of that nacho beans. I said, Mom, don't say that. And she said, yes, I want some tomatoes. And you put it in her head, trying to put it in her head that she's not going to like it before she even tries it. So sometimes we got to get to the parents, and that goes back with that psychology of how were they raised. Maybe they didn't have tomatoes when they were growing up.
Sorry. Know what else? I'm glad you said that and you brought the school up, because what gets me is, I work for the school system, the Milwaukee Public Schools, is a lot of the lunch food are going to waste because the kids don't like it, or they never seen it, or they never heard of it. It's something that is making them not want to eat, and then when they go home, they wind up wanting to eat junk food because it's fast. So I think we need to come up with a plan for the school system for our children. If we want to have them to eat healthy, we need to teach them that it's okay to eat something new that the school system brought up instead of just, okay, we're going to have healthy food for the kids at school, but that's not what's in a household. And then
Right.
they wind up going hungry at nighttime because the real food that they need to have during the day is the lunch food, but they're not really eating the lunch food. So I think
One
it should be a program to help.
one thing that happened when the pandemic came across and people were getting the food boxes from the schools, they were sending recipes and things home to tell
Okay.
parents how to make things.
Yeah.
But now that school is back in session and they're not doing that anymore, they don't really, send stuff to the parents like that, as far as, oh, this is what, and maybe that should be something that continues, that they also educate the parents on how these foods are prepared that they're giving the kids in the schools. But that was a really, so the idea that you're giving these fruits, vegetables, now you're giving recipes and telling about them in the packets. Because I'm telling you, my daughter used to get some, and it was foods in there that I had never heard of before. So I would have to read the sheet of paper to see what is it, how do you even eat this thing?
I would like to add, sometimes if we don't get the parent, but we plant seeds in the youth, we can save the next generation.
Yes.
And we can see the proof of how this new youth, the youth is taking on so much right now. They're doing things that has never been done before. And sometimes their parents are stuck where they are, but that youth has to keep moving forward. So those small seeds that we plant, and I'll give you an example of how I planted a seed in a class. And by the way, Sally, I love you because me and Sally are connected in the West Line area. One thing is for sure, this young guy, I said, do you play sports? And he said, yeah. I said, so what do you eat? I said, are you good at it? He said, yes, man, I'm like one of the top players. I said, well, what do you eat? He said, oh, I eat Doritos and this, that, and then third. I said, imagine if you're able to play by eating like that, how would your gift even be more advanced if you put the proper foods in your body? He was like, because the energy that you would get from the fueled foods that nourish you. I said, do you understand that would change the trajectory of your game? So I was able to meet him in a place where he can see bigger because of the love of basketball. So when you see yourself growing because it helps you reach your goal, then you help a person change their perspective. So you have to use another dynamic to change their mindset. Because now it became, oh my God, I can play like that based on what I put in my body versus I'm eating this because this is just what I'm used to. So he saw a benefit of the transition.
Right.
So it's just so many ways that we can tackle the youth, making sure that we make them feel loved and welcome when they enter our space, to give them an opportunity to say, hey, this is what I would like to prepare. This is what I like. So if there is a child that like Hot Pockets, how about us making Hot Pockets in a healthy form? And talk to them about all that processed food that is in that. We can have the same great tasting food, but it's not processed, and you made it yourself. So those are little things that I've learned as tricks to help.
I love that, those comments, and I want to stay with this. And I appreciate that. I've known Sally for a long time, and she's always on the go, and she had to go to another thing. And so we thank Sally for being here today. Bridgett, you talked early about your own family and your journey around food and health. And at one time, your family was homeless, and what a tragic that is, and almost in so many ways hard to eat healthy. But I want you to comment on that there's a myth out there that healthy eating has to be expensive, and that you can eat healthy on a budget. Can you talk about that and what you've learned over the years?
Yes, love that question. One of my favorite questions, as a matter of fact. The first thing we have to get the community to understand is what is healthy. Because if I don't know, you say the word healthy to me, what does that mean? I could pick up something like this granola, and most people think that that's healthy. And this is expensive because it's considered healthy, but it's not. This is just dressed up marketing. So what ends up happening is it's loaded with sugar and all these different things, and it costs a lot. But if I say, hey, a bag of beans to feed a family of four to six at $2.19 versus you stopping and buying a Happy Meal for more than that, and it's healthy, and I can talk about the health benefits of that, then I'm showing you that there are healthy foods that are cheap. You don't have to buy what you think is cheap on the dollar menu. You can get the same concept from the grocery store. I can buy a few bananas for $1 and something versus a bag of chips. I can buy a bag of potatoes versus potato chips. But what does that mean to me if I don't know, number one, what healthy means? Because some things that we consider food is not food. All that processed stuff, that's not food, and it's expensive. And it's anything, I teach them that stuff that's in your cabinets for years, how is that healthy? So we have to develop the mindset of not, because it's a lot of things that are not expensive, but we market the expensive stuff, like the plant-based stuff that's filled with sodium. That's why people think stuff is expensive, because of the marketing of stuff that they use to strategize and get people to spend money, when bananas, apples, and stuff like that are cheaper foods. So it's definitely a myth. And the creativity, the color, showing them, making food appealing. All of those things are important when trying to get people to understand that this can look good, taste good, and is healthy. So one of the things that is a bigger, also a myth, is people in the community don't understand. No, they just haven't been introduced to the people that can teach them. If you show me how to fish, I can fish. But if you assume I can't fish, but you never taught me, I can't fish. So me as a dietitian, Yvonne as a dietitian in the community, if they know where we are and we're introduced properly to them, then they could be like we see Caucasian people running at the lakefront. Put some food spaces around me where I can shop like that, and somebody is teaching me what to do with that. So one of the things that I love about my business is some things that I'm doing in the community under Perseverance to have that done. Some things that have never been done before to address that issue. So I hope I answered that. I know it was kind of long-winded, but
that's okay. That's okay. That's what we like. We want our community. That's why I always tell people, when I call you community champions, we want the community champions, the people that's out there that is doing the work on the ground to be able to really have a venue to tell us what is it that we need to do, how is the thought process, because some things we learn, we never thought of it like that.
Listen,
this idea that, you could tell me about fishing, you could teach me how to fish, but that experience, is the best teacher, and access. Having that access is so key, access and education at the same time. So all of those things are so important. And I know we're getting down to kind of like, some of the last things. And I just wanted to mention just a couple things, is that, you've raised youth. I've raised youth. I really love this whole idea of teachable moments.
Mm-hmm.
Teachable moments wherein the parent is the teacher, not the school system, not here, not everywhere. And as the parents learn, they can teach to their youth, because they're gonna be with you so many years, and you're gonna be feeding them so many years. And I do think it's important for parents now to, and we've been saying it long enough where lots of people know that it is important what you feed your children.
That's so
And
true.
and some people might say, this is what I ate when I was little. But that old saying, if you know better, you do better.
Do better.
Yeah. And so
Yeah.
I think that, when it becomes a family affair, because I know even doing these recipes in the house, my brother, he got offline. He was online at one time. The idea that we're doing these recipes, and when you're making them in the house and you're seeing them and you're smelling them and you're doing, come time to eat that food, that healthy food is very, very delicious. So kids in the kitchen and letting them help you. My mother said one time she was showing one of my nieces how to crack an egg. And she broke it down that you put your thumb here and you do this. And I'm thinking, I never even thought about how I crack an egg or how I open an egg. And then when I next time I thought about it, yes, I do put my thumb there and I break it. And I thought, oh wow, we take for granted so much that sometimes we don't even know that we're not teaching our kids stuff.
That's so true. And what's so amazing about what you just said, and I'm going to say this as lightly as I possibly can. One thing I would like to help people avoid is having to be the one to lose your husband and he dies in your arm because of something that could have been avoided. Having to have lost a 6-year-old and found out later that she had a condition that could have been influenced by someone introducing me to how to feed her. So if I look at it like that and don't want somebody else to go through that, and sharing those stories as I'm teaching,
right,
that alone could help pull some people out of the fire.
Yeah.
Some people would take the message and want better. And unfortunately, some people have to learn in the process. And one thing I see oftentimes as a dietitian is when people get on diabetic medications, sometimes we need that. And everybody don't always successful, evenly with transitioning their eating habits struggle. But some people take the medication to feed the disease and eat what they want to do.
Right.
So you just taking a medication to keep your numbers down. How about taking the medication and eating right to impact your body overall?
Your body and your health.
Overall.
Yes.
And you're still complying with what the doctor told you, but the doctor is not going home with you when you're making those food decisions.
Right.
So sometimes people still feed the condition by not modifying their eating behaviors instead of partnering with the medical team for their own health. And we can't hold the medical organization to hold us accountable for stuff that you are not doing to save your own life.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a responsibility in that. So after I teach you how to fish, now you're responsible to fish.
Yeah.
So while teaching those
I used to think about that when I was given diet instructions. And they say, you leave the hospital, have the dietitian come up and give a diet instruction. And then we go through that you can have this and you can have that. You can have this and you can have that. You can have this. So, and I used to think about, okay, how is this person going to do? Now, when they're very motivated and they first get home, they follow that piece of paper to the religious. It may only take about a week or two before they say, I need to go get something to eat.
Yep.
As if they can't eat this way. My sister used to have me counseling people on how to eat after they've had heart surgery. And you have to know, my sister was a bartender. So she would be in the bar setting up, somebody come in and want a drink. And they said, oh, he just had a heart attack. He just had a heart. This is the person you need to talk to. And I used to always think, is that really ethical to talk to him? But it was the idea that now they're really back into living regular and they didn't know what they can eat, even though they had this sheet of paper.
Yep.
So it changed my whole way of counseling people, because they still, even if they had diabetes, they need to know how to go in and pull something out of that kitchen that's going to be right for them versus trying to figure out how many fruit exchanges, how many things that, all this thought process when people are used to just going to the kitchen and getting something to eat. But if the whole thing is you're how to eat to live, eating your way to a healthy life, my motto is the idea that you're eating for lifetime. Learning to eat healthy is eating a lifetime, and there's no cheating. You can't have a cheat day. You can make choices and selections and choose a healthier or not, but you are eating for the rest of your life. So a pill is not going to change the idea that you still need to eat healthy. I remember one person who told me a vitamin pill cannot make a bad diet good. If you just take a vitamin pill, I take a vitamin pill, I don't have to eat healthy.
Right.
There's no vitamin pill that will make a bad diet good.
Listen, even this juicing phrase, if you take a whole pineapple and a bag of apples to put in a smoothie,
Right.
That's the So with me, with my juices, it's a whole different concept. I highlight vegetables.
Yeah.
And one of the things that is crazy is it's a world full of that, where they got all these things. Oh, that's healthy. You just learning portion control, all of that stuff. It's a lot. It's a lot involved. So,
and I always tell people to be kind to themselves, that you go on your health and wellness and nutrition journey, and it's a journey for life. And you may not be 100% perfect at first, but if you don't give up and again, why are you eating? If you're really eating to improve your health, then you're going to keep eating to improve your health for a lifetime versus thinking that I'm just going to eat healthy for 2 weeks and go back to the same old way you used to. So, well, should I say my quick takeaways real quick?
Yes, ma'am. Please do.
Well, some of my takeaways is, first of all, that we need to eat the rainbow and the rainbow of colors in our fruits and vegetables and the foods, that we need to transition from those early ways of eating and teaching just full foods to, as people get older, so they can understand how to read labels, how they can decide what is healthy foods to have in their eating, and to have healthy eating starting from the very start, from pre-pregnancy and during pregnancy and all through life, but also that starting from where they are at, starting from where that individual is at, and really giving them the understanding of what the benefit of the transition is for their health, making it real for them, that how does it affect me personally when I make those changes, and to make them feel welcomed. That building the relationships with people is so very key and important, but you need to understand and help them understand, why are they eating what they're eating? Why are they selecting? Why are they not moving past what they already want to move past from? And so they can learn what is really healthy. What is a healthy diet? And kind of introduce them to the marketing myths of healthy and the cost of food that is much more effective for natural healthy foods than just buying processed food. So those are my big takeaways.
Yvonne, that was so wonderful, and you encapsulated it so nicely. And we had this show about youth, but it really is about all of us. And this idea of is a journey of, it's not a destination, but it is a journey toward health that is lifelong. And that, Bridgett Wilder, it was such a pleasure to have you on the show today. We love your enthusiasm and your passion for life. Despite all of some of the challenges that you have, you instill goodness in others. And I think that is a legacy that needs to be celebrated.
Before we leave, I want to ask Bridgett one thing, because I have her book right here. She knows I keep it right next to me. And I have a student who wants to know how to get your book. Why me? A question I refuse to ask God. I know you're making another one, but I don't know if it's out yet. But
Right.
where can we get your book?
She can reach out to me on my website, perseverewellness.com.
Okay.
And then I will get her a book once she reaches out to me, or she can email me, but perseverewellness.com.
Okay.
We will
email right through there.
we will put that in the chat. Thank you, Yvonne, for doing that.
Thank you. And also, Kelsey, it's wonderful connecting with you. David, thank you for reconnecting with me, because I know we have a history when I was a student for MCOT. So I just want to thank you for all the impartation that you have given me, your sense of encouragement, that there was an organization that had a vision that I had, and that's to heal the community. So I want to thank you. And of course, Yvonne, there's so much I could say, it will take up too much time, but I love you dearly.
Thank you,
So
Bridgett.
thank you very, very, very much for the opportunity to be on your podcast.
Well, and that is a perfect way to end. And for Bridgett Wilder, Kelsey Heindel, Sally Yeldell, Yvonne Greer, I am David
Wait.
Nelson.
Remember,
Yes.
our next program is on March 23rd. This one is going to start at 12:30, just a little bit earlier. And we're going to have two dynamic women that I think I have mentored a little bit as well, but we are going to talk about nutrition, diversity, and nurturing and mentoring our future nutrition leaders. So I think you don't want to miss that one. And I'm happy to be a part of these programs and to be able to bring our community champions on. This is such a pleasure. So thank you. And I turn it back to David.
Thank you, Yvonne. Thank you for that plug. We hope you'll tune in to the Days of Learning Back to the Kitchen podcast right here. Thanks, everybody, and have a wonderful afternoon.
Bye. Take care.